first of all?
Wonderful.
That's lovely to hear. I'm very well, thank you as well. We have absolutely beautiful weather over here. How's it in India?
In India, it's sometimes raining, it's sometimes very sunny. You know India, right? It's an amalgamation of all kinds of weather.
Well, you haven't seen the UK then.
Yeah.
We can be happy that we have sunshine at some point, and when it comes quite strong. It just powers onto you.
In India, at one side of the city there is sunshine. At another side of the city in Calcutta, it's raining. Another side there are thunderstorms. It is a amalgamation of weather. You can't predict what is going to happen next.
Wow, I was not aware of these kind of extreme weather changes in very similar areas. That's interesting to know. No, it doesn't happen like this in UK. If it's miserable, it's all over the UK like this. But
Okay.
not on one area and the other, actually. I mean, there are areas which are different, but usually it's similar kind of weather. But we're quite lucky in the south. That's where I am. The south from London, so it's in Kent. It's called Garden of England, the Royal Garden of England, full of gardens.
Have you ever had the pleasure of visiting India?
No, I've seen lots of films. I watched lots of Bollywood films, and I've seen lots of documentaries as such. But no, I didn't have the pleasure so far. But it is on my list, definitely on my top list to go there. And because I speak the language as well, I will certainly just globe around like a globetrotter and then explore the country as such.
That is wonderful. Whenever you come to India, I can take you to a lot of places to visit.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes. I might take on that offer soon, you never know.
Yeah.
So tell me first about yourself. I mean,
how is the COVID situation in the UK?
Oh, the COVID situation. Well, it's a lot better now. There's still risk there, and the illness is still there, the virus is still there, but we are very good in the rollout of vaccines. Actually, the UK has covered a lot of people, which is very good to see, especially the most affected ones, the elderly and the ones who may not have that strength, biological strength. So it's quite good, but they're prolonging the restrictions to another month now, which meant to be lifted now in June, but they have prolonged them for another few weeks. And yes, we don't know what's going to happen.
Same in Calcutta in India. And here, there are a lot of disadvantaged people who are not able to go out and get the vaccine at the vaccine centers. So they have been completely isolated. So
that's right. No, it's not very nice as such. I'm just putting the view back on gallery view. I don't know why it changed, so you can see me better. I mean, I've heard about that. Tell me a little more about it, because in general, I think because the news just states that India is in a very, very bad state about that. How's the actual situation?
So I'll tell you, there are a lot of persons with disabilities who are wheelchair users and who are visually impaired and visually challenged, and they do not have any access to any kind of vaccine because the centers are not equipped to handle persons with disabilities, and they have become sort of the most marginalized community in India.
Right.
So it's really sad and heartbreaking to watch.
It sounds like it. That must be terrible, because they don't even have the funds to travel to another place and get the vaccine somewhere else,
Yeah, and there's a very strict lockdown restriction, so most of the persons with disabilities do not have access to their own vehicle. They sort of rely on public transport, which is sort of at a standstill because of the restrictions in place, and it's really heartbreaking to watch.
Yeah, I can imagine. It does hurt my soul when I see that. I mean, it's nice to hear that from from a person who lives there.
Few days back, I received a call from a person with a disability who wanted access to vaccine, and he wasn't able to travel and get the vaccine. And after a few days, I got a call that that person is no more. So this kind of things take a toll on your mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we wanted to talk today about. I mean, I was looking at your profile and you sent me some documents as well. Do you lead the Forbes magazine in India, or is that a project where you're engaging with other disabled clients to get them more access to that?
I was somebody who was featured in Forbes. I am not associated with Forbes, but I was somebody who was featured in Forbes. I am the SDG ambassador for India for diversity and inclusion, which is sustainable developmental goals from the UN. And I lead the diversity and inclusion part in India. And
may I just say to my audience, it's Sumit Agarwal who we're talking to today. So yes, please just carry on.
Yeah. So there are too many people who suffer in terms of having disabilities, in terms of being plagued by inaccessible places, no access to transport. So these kind of issues.
So is that something which led you to now helping these people who have mobility issues to get maybe more renowned, to more recognized in featuring them in the
I try my best, but there's a long way to go. There's a very long way to go in terms of helping these people. I try my best, but
yes, I'm sure. I mean, sorry, if you need to take some time, it's okay. We're not in a rush in anything.
Yeah.
But
the government machinery is not equipped enough to deal with.
And what have you been doing in general about that? I mean, how far have you come? I know you mentioned that it's a long way to go, but you've still accomplished a lot of things. To what I was reading on your profile, it's very impressive as such,
So professionally, I have my own public relations agency in Calcutta, and I sort of deal with a few clients in terms of media relations, but I do hold a lot of honorary designations in different organizations for diversity and inclusion. And when somebody reaches out to me, I try to get them connected to the nearest vaccine center and get them connected to the nearest social welfare officer who can in terms assist them. But there is a lot more that can be done.
I mean, you yourself suffer on a cerebral palsy, which you've officially, publicly actually stated, and I find that actually quite impressive in general. That it's a very, very difficult illness because it causes a lot of mobility issues and health issues as well. To then have the strength to do all of this, what you're doing, is remarkable.
So I draw my strength from the fact that I don't want other people to go through the same experience that I have went through and faced the same kind of difficulties that I have faced. And that sort of gives me the strength to, sort of carry myself in such a manner that I can affect and impact the lives of other people as well.
And that is beautiful to hear, because not everyone has this kind of strength or the drive to create changes for somebody else. There's only very few people who would actually look outside of their pain and suffering and still want to go out and help others because they don't want them to suffer like they themselves have. And that's a very, very excellent quality to have. Does that, I mean, it does it to me anyway. I don't suffer with any disability, but I have gone through trauma in my past life, various traumas. But the kind of sense connecting with people while you're helping them, does that give you a similar feeling? What it does give me, it's when you're helping somebody else and, you know, improving something, making them happy, or putting some positive impact in somebody else's life, it actually helps you as well. It heals you, it soothes you, it rewards you.
Yeah, so I am a believer in Rhonda Byrne's philosophy of the secret, which states that the more you give, the more you receive. And in this case, the amount of satisfaction that you get from helping somebody, making their life better, is something which cannot be explained by words.
That's right, that's right. It's a very liberating feeling. It enlightens you.
It is a very powerful feeling which uplifts your soul.
That's right, that's right. And it gives you such a happiness which you can't even describe to anyone. You know, it just gives you such peace of mind, which is lovely to see. So I mean, within your journey, you mentioned about how you help them, even the access to various things which they haven't got in general. So, how long have you been doing that? Is that a little while ago, or you've been doing that for quite some time?
So I have been doing that since I was in class 12, which is roughly around 10 years back. From around 10 years back. So I have been doing this for a very long time.
Is that the time when you were featured in the Forbes as well?
No, I was featured in Forbes recently. I was featured in 2020, just before before the pandemic.
And that's wonderful. How was that experience? How did they approach you?
So they approached me because of my, things that I was doing for the SDG and other things that I was doing in terms of my PR agency and media relations. They found it to be a very interesting story.
I mean, that is a very inspiring story for a lot of people, especially youngsters out there, you know, who feel like they can't achieve something or they can't go anywhere. If you have the drive to that, even if your mobility issues are hindering you, and even more so if you don't have them, then you haven't got any excuse not to. You can achieve anything you want if you have the drive, the determination, the strength, the willpower, like you have. And I can see you carry a lot of love and positivity inside you, which is so precious.
So a lot of the times I get asked the question that, did you ever feel that you would be doing better without your disability? And I usually have the reply that, do not try to fix what is not broken, and, disability is something which is to be celebrated, not to be fixed or cured. It gives you a different perspective in life altogether.
And you said it so beautifully about it. I mean, I work with clients. I'm a transformational mind coach as such, and I work on that in embracing what you have. You know, wherever it's your experiences, wherever in your case it's your disability, wherever it's any kind of other issues, whatever you go through in your life, embrace it and make the best out of that, because that's what builds you, that's what creates you, that's what makes you. And that's the only way to progress forward and to, find purpose in your life and find all these happy and meaningful things you do. Otherwise, you just become stuck and focused on the negative point and actually not recognizing what beauty lies around you and what opportunities you may have, because they can come to you and you may not even recognize them because you're too occupied with the one negative thing as such.
Yeah. So I feel like if one door closes in your life, you are free to open the door again, because that's how doors are supposed to work, right? If it closes, you can just open that again. So in terms of opportunities, I believe that, I have been rejected from over 6 jobs, and I was told that you cannot achieve anything in life. You have a degree in marketing, and for marketing, you are going to have to work, to travel, and I cannot stand or walk without support. So people told me that you won't be able to do anything, and I created my own opportunity.
And that's what it's about. You didn't give up. And I was speaking to another guest, which were published yesterday, a podcast about Dr. Charlie Cartwright. He's an international business consultant and engages with clients to create positivity and changes their mindset, to have this belief inside you, to create this hope that there are ways to do so. And that's what I can see with you. Whatever you have embraced it, and you haven't given up, because rejections and failures are just part of life, and they actually show us and guide us, which you have done beautifully, to the pathway of success. I mean, look at you. You're achieving well in your young age as such, which if you don't have this kind of drive, then the only person you can blame is yourself. You cannot blame your environment or the situation itself. You need to be able to be mindful of that.
So for the generation that I have seen a lot of people blame their parents for and the kind of upbringing and the other things and the trauma that they have, but I'm not a believer of that concept.
Yeah.
I believe that you have to own your own responsibility in life.
Yeah.
At times, and that is something which takes you a long way when you are achieving something in life.
That's right, and that's absolutely beautifully said. Exactly what I believe in as well. My life philosophy. You cannot blame any situation, because what it is, if you start blaming all these things, they might excuse you for a little while. They may give you little comfort or reason why things are happening, but they are not the solution. That's the point. They're not going to take you any further unless
Yeah.
you take your own responsibility and embrace all these things, and then look for opportunities, which you have done beautifully. You won't progress. Simple as that. And you've done it brilliantly as such, and now inspiring other people and helping other people to go forward as well. That's ideal. And I think we need more people like you out there who speak like this, who tell us about their stories, wherever it's my story about my trauma, wherever it's your story about your mobility issues, and then still thrive. And despite all these negative critiques and all these hurdles which are put in front of you, and I understand it's not easy to live in India having a disability, because the kind of facilities which are maybe provided in the UK, they just don't exist in India as such.
It kind of, yeah, I agree. It kind of limits your ability, because in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the policies that exist. For example, if I wanted to start a large business with the help of a loan, I don't think the Indian banking system is equipped well enough to deal with, facilitating quick loans for persons with disabilities.
That's right. That's right. And besides that, you don't have the healthcare, which is just not available as such. Everything runs on privatization.
And whatever is available in India is quite expensive for people who are affected with disabilities, because most of the persons affected with disabilities in India belongs from the rural segment of the population
Yeah.
where they just don't earn enough or have the financial capabilities to procure equipments and treatment to live a healthy and a better life.
That's absolutely right. I agree with that. And it makes it even harder to do so. But that's why you coming forward as public figure, talking about all these things and what you're creating, what you're achieving, how you're helping people is so important, for everybody to know that if you have the right determination and the strength, the willpower as such, the positivity within yourself, then you can achieve anything you want, anything you want. So
So this is something which I inherited from my mother, so a sort of stubborn nature to not give up. Because when I was little, no school wanted to take me in for my education, and they told my mother that put him in a special school. He belongs in a special school. Don't put him with us. If he falls down, if something happens to him, we are just not equipped enough to deal with him.
that's right, that's right. And your mom has done a very good job, I must say. She's brought up a lovely young man.
Yeah, she gave up her career as a successful lawyer, and she put her 100% for making my career.
And that is the beauty about that. If you have this kind of support, it's very comforting as
Yeah.
much. And the good thing about it is, I mean, what you've mentioned just now, that getting into a normal public school in India, especially when you're distant, it's not just a mobility issue as such, because they're not equipped for that. I know that there's a cultural issue as well, and that is another issue which I wanted to touch with you, because although England or the UK itself, it might be more accepted as such to have these diversities, but there's still some issues sometimes. It's never completely gone. But with such a rich culture where people do not have the education as such, what that means, it's often perceived as something alienated or not right. And that I imagine that must have been really difficult for you to having to go through that.
Yes, 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 it did. And some of those points were the lowest points of my life, where, I sort of was indulging in self-pity, and I had the question that why me, and so out of those questions that everyone goes through when you have been rejected over and over and over again. So dealing with rejections is a very hard thing to do, but once you have done it, nothing in the world can stop you, right?
Absolutely. You have to pass that time. You have to pass the fear. You have to pass these challenges, and you've come out on the other side. That just shows how strong you actually are. And that is the beauty about that. Do you want to talk a bit more about, I mean, I know that how the culture works, but there's a lot in the audience who may not be aware of that. If you could maybe elaborate on some maybe experiences you had as such, what happened?
So in India, uh, India is a beautiful place with a lot of cultures living together. But once the treatment in India stops in hospitals, when you don't have any treatment in the hospitals, people look towards temples for treatment. And there are a lot of incidents where people tried to sell my mother for charms and lockets and trinkets for as cure, and my parents have spent a lot of money on these kind of trinkets. So these things happen in India, and when you visit a place, when I was visiting a place at OT, I think it's a beautiful place, hill station, and somebody looked at me and said, um, are these the past sins of your life? I just looked at the person and I did not have a immediate response. Like I was confused and like, what did he want to say? Like, these are certain things that you have to deal with if you are a person with disability. I still deal with some of these issues, you know.
Yeah.
When I go to the airport, for example, for traveling flight, the crew, the staff in the airport, they insist that I sit on a wheelchair, and the more I tell them that I am not comfortable using a wheelchair, they tell me that, you know, you cannot walk without support, and we have these protocols in place which you have to follow. So this is something which is more than acceptance, which is you have to learn what the person is comfortable with and what the person is not comfortable with. Right? And this is something which, you know, in India, people don't really respect certain boundaries which you should have. And sometimes it is even hard for me to deal with such things.
I can imagine that, and it must be really utterly difficult having to continuously deal with that, because you don't get a break unless you close yourself within your home. You know, it must be very struggling as such, having to continuously educate people, having to continuously show this resilience to someone else. You know, and how generally do you deal with that when you have a down day? Do you take on counseling, or do you talk to somebody? How do you manage these kind of emotions?
Well, I have a lot of good friends from the social media circle, and I have a very beautiful family on LinkedIn, and I generally reach out to people and I talk to them, because I believe that talking can be a very powerful healing factor for someone you know, who's going through a lot in their life.
That is so beautifully said. That's another point we're touching on. That talking is a way of healing as well, because it lets out all the emotions. As long as the right people you're talking to, it lets out all the emotions, so your brain can start processing these things in a better way. And it's like carrying a whole lot of weight with you around, and you've given that weight to someone else, and you feel lighter with that. And that's when you can continue carrying on, then taking on more loads until you're ready to give it off again. Is that right? Is that how you feel? Yeah, you know, I mean, you can see I do have some knowledge about psychology. No, I'm just joking. I am a psychologist. So it's just how our human brain works. If we cannot process certain things, then other mental health conditions pop up, and it does then makes it difficult for us to live our life. But the positive attitude you have is just admiring as such. I mean, what do you do in general? I mean, you're doing all this lovely charitable work. Do you hold speeches and you go to conferences as well?
Yes, I do. So in fact, in the past 6 years, I have spoken at over 75 conferences at various, you know, in various capacities. Some I have spoken about diversity in new media. Some I have spoken about public relations and branding. Some I have definitely spoken about diversity and inclusion. So I try to balance both of my roles together, one as a PR professional, another as a diversity and inclusion expert, where, you know, I sort of try to balance both of my roles together. For example, I have a media conference coming up right on the 20th, where I'm going to speak about diversity in new media and how important it is for the new media, say blogs and other forms of media right now, podcasts and other forms of media, to be diverse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty about that. That's what I wanted to achieve as well in my podcast. I'm having a guest from all over the globe, which is so beautiful. It's so privileged to see. And specifically, as you said, you've connected through social media and build up a friendship, a lovely friendship as such, with people you can socialize with and you can connect and talk to. The same way I have actually experienced that as well. You know, all these guests have actually connected to me with through social media, and that's the beauty about social media. It has its negative sides if you take it or misunderstand it as such and don't know how to manage these things, but it has very positive outcomes as well, and that's what I wanted to achieve in my podcast as such, to have this diversity inside, you know, not to be limited by anyone. So there's so many different
social
people
media
coming.
is something which social media is something which breaks down barriers and boundaries, and that is in itself very powerful. You know, I have been a very old user of social media. In fact, when Facebook wasn't there, I remember being a user of Orkut.
All right. Okay. No, I haven't been that long on social media. I've only been the last few months actually on social media, but I managed to create lovely, beautiful connections and build up a great fan base as such. But in general, I think, yes, you're right. Social media has its beauty. And the good thing what I've found is that you have access to people, or you connect to people which you would have never been able to do so, if, you know, even geographically. I mean, look at us talking here. It wouldn't be possible to connect in such a way without the likes of social media. So that is what the beauty about that is. And I think if that would be highlighted more, then the negative side of that would be actually more reduced as such. So people would be focusing on the positive side and would create more impact on the positive side.
Especially for persons with disabilities, one of the main issues that they deal with is isolation and deprivation. And I feel that social media helps people with disabilities connect to people who are going through similar experiences and sort of lighten their own burden.
And that is the beauty about that again, that you talked about isolation and you know, connecting with like-minded people or people with similar conditions as such. It is just the like of this digital new era as such, you know, in the likes of social media. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible. And how difficult it must also be for many people who you come across from this area actually, or who have mobility issues, who may not have this education enough about social media, because I can imagine because of the lack of understanding of differences as such in India, in that cultural background, which has a lot of beauty as well, but because of the lack of education, it happens that these people would be isolated and they would feel suddenly not being able to see anyone, to connect anyone. I mean, let alone we have that issue here in the UK as well, although it's the first world country as such, but there have been many people who were not able to leave the house, for instance, for over years, and they have been feeling very isolated, which has a huge impact on that. But I can relate to or understand as such, emphasize that in India must be even worse as such, because people will judge you, and because they're not educated enough. So are you creating in that way some facilities for these people to socialize as well? Are you doing that too?
So this is something which has been on my to-do list, but I haven't been able to, sort of work on that because I am the only son in my family,
All right.
and
Okay.
I have to take care of my professional things to pay my bills as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Apart from doing whatever I'm doing in my honorary capacity. So this
And
is,
you're doing that beautifully. I mean, that's another thing. It's a cultural thing where the sons take care of the family as such, and I think you've created that niche rather than getting defeated by your situation. You've actually taken it on. You've embraced it, and you said, no, you're not going to stop. You're actually creating a difference, and you're making a good living. that is
yeah.
that is that is the beautiful thing about that. I mean, we've got you mentioned about a gender diversity, and not gender diversity, generally diversity as well, which you want to create, and you have been invited to that media conference. We have also something coming up where I have been invited on a panel. Do you know Mansi Dokla?
No, I don't.
Okay, if you look on my connections on the social media site, you will see she invited me kindly on her panel, which is going to happen in the panel discussion over the weekend. And there's many individuals
Uh, can you
involved.
can you repeat the name, please?
It's Mansi Dokla.
Mansi Dogla, yeah, I know.
You know her. She's a wonderful person, and she tries to create changes in India as well.
Yeah,
And that might be interesting for you as well to watch. As soon as it's released, I will release it share it on my profile too, so you can have a look on that. But
yeah.
I'm actually quite excited to see or to be part of this panel and have this discussion. It would be great. But I think we need generally more of people like yourself to talk about these kind of issues so
So,
openly.
so within inclusion and diversity, also there is some kind of discrimination,
Yeah,
because people usually talk about women diversities and other kinds of diversities, and disability seems to take the last seat,
yeah,
So for
yeah.
that is also one of the issues that I address, that within inclusion and diversity, all issues should be given equal weightage.
No, absolutely, I agree. It should be emphasized. I mean, we have the Invicta Games here, which Prince Harry actually introduced a few years ago. I don't know if you're aware of that. The Invicta Games are the Olympian Games for disabled people who have, gone through some form of trauma or physical disability, mental health disability, some form of disability, and they then take part within these games. And that has created a lot of hope and a lot of strength and a lot of changes within that society as well, to understand that it's normal, it's just part of our life, and it can happen to anyone. And why not embrace these things and move forward? And I would hope that at some point, with the likes of yourself, who are creating or wanting, have the urge to create these changes, some form of system would be embraced in India as well. So all these youngsters who are watching now and wanting to be inspired, they would have these opportunities to, just have a little chance, just be able to do something and be able to enjoy life as such.
I
And
think India has come a long way, but
yeah,
it still has a long way to go.
yeah, that's absolutely right. And as long we are realistic about that, that's when we can progress. And I think India has come a long way. I can see there's a lot of changes have been still happening, and that's just the beauty about that. As long as it progresses and
Yeah,
doesn't stop, that's where you have this hope. That's where you can still look forward to and still look into the light and still move and progress as such. It's only when something stops progressing that's when it becomes critical and dangerous and concerning as such. But yeah, I mean the company itself which you have created now, do you have any staff members there as well, or are you working on one-to-one basis?
I work with a team of freelancers.
That's right. Oh, wonderful. And yeah, how big is the team, or what kind of team is that? Is that a people of youngsters or?
So it's a people of youngsters generally, around 5 to 6 people. I work with freelancers from various different states, from different cultural backgrounds.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. So you communicate with them over social media, I'm presuming then?
Yeah.
And how is it working? How is it going on?
This is going great. I have a couple of non-profits as clients. I have a couple of film production houses as clients, and I also help a few startups.
Oh, that's wonderful. That means we can see you soon in a Bollywood film then. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Don't worry.
So I basically, handle the PR and the media relations part.
Yeah. So have you had a few documentaries then in general?
Yeah, mostly short films. I've handled mostly short films for other production houses and from various genres of entertainment to something educational and also startups.
That's lovely. And is there a specific program you have which you can mention now?
So one of the current projects that I'm working with is something called Horses Tables. It's a production house in Bangalore, and we are launching something similar to Shark Tank in India.
That's interesting. So what is that going to do? Are you allowed to reveal some information?
Yeah, so they are going to have a panel of investors on the show, and they are going to invest in startups. These panel of investors are going to invest in various startups, mostly Indian startups, to make them more prominent and help them to scale up in the ecosystem.
We here in the UK have the Dragon's Den, it's called, where there's a lot of investors, very successful, rich business people who have a panel, and that's the official program. It's a TV show, who have a panel of judges as such, where people, new startups come and they present their product, whatever they want to start in their business with, and then ask for investment. And they present it on a TV show. Is that something similar, what you're talking about?
Yeah, this is similar, but it's not on a TV show, but OTT platform.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's an OTT platform called Geo Cinemas and MX Player. So it's an OTT platform where these content is telecasted.
That's interesting. I mean, it might be worth you maybe mentioning to them, look at Dragon's Den, create a TV show about that, because that could even give more opportunities to the ones who are applying for these things, because they would be getting media attention automatically through the show. So that might be helpful in that way too. Maybe up for suggestion. You never know what comes out of that.
Definitely.
And you could be the host of that. We could be looking at a celebrity in the future. And I'm pretty sure you present really well, especially the way how you've done it already and you're talking today. You will win a lot of hearts.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. No, I think you're a very, very inspiring young man, and that is important for our audience to know as well, especially for the young audience, to know that, whatever comes in your life, no matter how hard life makes you, As long as you build up the resilience, the strength, determination, the positive mindset, there's nothing which can hold you back. And if there are things which are holding you back, you embrace the failures, you embrace the rejections and create opportunities. That's what the message is.
Yeah, so what fascinates me is our ability to create a better tomorrow. No matter your present circumstances, no matter where you are from, no matter what you are going through, no matter what is currently happening in your life, what fascinates me is we always have the ability to create a better tomorrow for ourselves and the people around us.
And that is the beautiful message. Absolutely. Carry on.
As human beings, we are wired and have the innate ability to create and think for a beautiful future for ourselves as well as the people around us.
That's right. That's right. And it's a wonderful message. I must say, you talk actually much more mature than your age is. You've got you're so wise in your words, how you use them. It's beautiful to hear from you, and I'm pretty sure that any youngster who would watch this kind of this podcast here would actually be inspired by you, would actually stop making these excuses which they're making in their little way, and just go for it. Just embrace things, leave the fear, create opportunities. Everything is in your hand, and that's a wonderful message to do. It's beautiful talking to you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, actually. You're so inspiring for so many, not just youngsters, for anybody out there. Anybody who's sitting there, who's maybe not knowing what to do, who's maybe lost hope, or who maybe just self-engulfed in their self-pity. So just come out of there and look at this wonderful young man and get inspired, create motivation and go for it. You can be proud of yourself, and that goes to your mum as well. She has created something wonderful. It's a big compliment.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for being a guest on my show, and for introducing your wonderful things to us. And I'll make sure it goes to the wide audience, to everyone, this message, and everyone would know about that. And you feel free to share it in your network as well, wherever you want to do that. And hopefully it will be released very, very soon. And then I'll let you know when it's going to be released. And feel free to share it anywhere you want. And thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
And you too. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.